This video is brought to you by Dr. Kristen R. Bromley's Guitar Method Book Series and Online Music Academy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome to my online academy. It's so great to have you joining me here in these online lessons. This is lesson 3 in this mini series that is all about strumming patterns and strumming principles. So let's just go ahead and dive in. We're going to, of course, build on what we've done in the last couple of lessons. So in the first lesson, amongst other things, we looked at strumming with whole notes, half notes, dotted half notes, and quarter notes. Then in the last lesson, we looked at some variations that we can do once we add eighth notes. And now in this lesson, we're going to look at the most common sort of fundamental strumming patterns that we get introduced to on the guitar, and look at some different ways that we can play them. These are going to have a mix of quarter notes and eighth notes. This is pretty common. In 4/4 time, which is what we're working in right now, which is our most common meter, as I've mentioned before, this is the one that we play in the most. Most of the time we fill 4 beats per measure, and then that gets repeated over and over. With this, most of our strumming happens at the eighth note and the quarter note level. We can have longer notes, as we talked about in the first lesson, and as we will do in future lessons, we can actually even have shorter than eighth notes. So we're going to look at these 3. I mentioned, I think at the end of the last lesson, 4, and that's because one of these I'm going to show you how it's kind of commonly played first before we get to the version I actually have up here on the board. But we'll look at each of these 3 patterns which get played on the guitar so much for so many different styles, and look at some different ways that we can actually use them. Because as we know, the things that contribute to the strumming pattern are the meter and the rhythm, which you got up here on the board, and then the strumming direction. So the strumming direction can change things. I've got strumming direction actually indicated up here on the board as well. And then we know that how we treat each of the strummed rhythms, or if it's a rest, or if we're slapping or doing some sort of other articulated rhythmic note, how we treat those changes the pattern as well. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. The first pattern I have written up here on the board is down, down, up, down, down, up. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. These are the strumming directions. So the little 3-sided rectangle, so to speak, is a down strum, and then the V, like a U, is an up strum. So this has down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. I have a little bit of a chord progression up here on the board, D, G, C, D, to demonstrate these with, and for you to practice right along with me if you'd like, or even just to sort of work on them on your own. So D, G, C, and D. We're going to just use those chords. Now, if you're jumping into this interested in strumming but don't know how to play the chords, the Guitar 101 course on the channel that is chords and strumming would be one to see before doing this, because it'll walk you through how to play the chords, which I'm not doing in this lesson series. Just strumming, and we're going beyond with the strumming, really what we do in that one. In that one we get some strumming just as we're working on those chords, get some of these strumming patterns down, but without the variations and the depth. So this builds on that. Okay, so we go back to this down, down, up, down, down, up. If I go ahead and play that with the chords, it sounds just like that. 2, ready, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. One of the great things about this particular strumming pattern is that when we have 2 chords per measure, so I was just treating each one of these chords as though they had an entire measure of music, but when we do 2 chords per measure, this strumming pattern works awesome because it has the same rhythm and the same strumming for the first half as it does for the second half. So if we did 2 chords per measure, it'd sound like down, down, up, down, down, up. Decided to repeat there. I wasn't sure if I was going to. So that works well, and I wanted to mention that. Now, another thing I showed us in the last lesson when we had all eighth notes is that as another variation, besides having even eighths, where we're treating the eighth notes with the same amount of time, whether they're on the down beat or whether they're, I should say, on a beat or in between a beat. So, like this one falls on beat 2, and then and of 2, right, in between beats 2 and 3. We can push things that are on the off beat further back into the measure and create swung eighth notes instead of the even or straight eighth notes. So down, down, up, down, down, up would be even or straight eighth notes. Down, down, up, down, down, up. Just a little bit of delay before we come on that up strum. Down, down, up, down, down, up. So if I throw that in here, we got 1, 2, ready, and... Just like that. Now those are the two classic ways to use this strumming pattern, and it's one of the first strumming patterns that we may run into and use when we're playing the guitar. But there's different ways that we can manipulate it further with accenting or with palm muting or with slapping. For example, I could do slap strumming on beats 2 and 4. So if I had down, slap. Now when I'm doing a slap strum, then what I'm doing is I'm actually slapping the strings with the palm of my hand, sort of on the side as I'm doing the strum. So right now I've got the strings just muted in my left hand. That's sort of a slap strum. If I put it to the chords, we have 1, 2, ready, and... kind of a fun example with that one. Of course, you could change and do variations with the strumming direction, all down, all up, or change up the ups and downs would create other variations. But this is a foundational one, and that slap strum is kind of a fun way to sort of change that up a little bit further. And then you can change things further, as I demonstrated in the last lesson when we move to bar chords and power chords and so on. So that is the first fundamental strumming pattern with some variation there on the ways that we can do it. With even eighth notes, swung eighth notes, we can start adding in treatment to the way we play besides letting the chord just ring over as we're strumming, but start controlling the end of that or doing some slap strumming or whatever. So let's take a look at the second one then. This is another classic. We've got down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up. So demonstrate this one with the chord progression. We have 1, 2, ready, we got D, well when you have 2 chords per measure, because you can do the first half for the first chord and the second half for the second chord, or you can do the first half for each chord, which would actually be the same as our first strumming pattern. But I'll go first half for the first chord and second half for the second chord, sticking this together as though we had 2 chords per measure. So you have 1, 2, ready, and... just as we did swung eighth notes with that first one, we can do swung eighth notes with this one. So it's going to be down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up. You get 1, 2, ready, and... And if we had 2 chords per measure, we'd have 1, 2, ready, and... Of course, we could add in slap strumming or palm muting as well. We could change up the strumming direction. I'm going to do all down strums, and I'm going to do a palm muting just as a demonstration here. So you got 1, 2, ready. By palm muting, in case you haven't seen another video, I've got the palm of my hand sitting right on the saddle, so it mutes the strings or slightly deadens the strings. The pitches are still ringing through in the chords. So you got 1, 2, ready, and... Now we could add an accent with that on beats 2 and 4. So I'm just strumming slightly harder on those beats. That would sound really great if I was doing it with power chords. 2, ready, and you'd have... kind of fun. I could add doing this with bar chords. Now with bar chords I can control with my left hand how chords ring over, and I can squeeze and release. Which changes the feel of it by you know, some degrees. It just makes it feel slightly different in the group. So with that, I'm releasing right there on that second down. Right after I strum down, I release and cut that off so it sort of accents it. I don't fully pull my hand off, I just release the pressure so my fingers are still touching this left string. So do it on beats 4, 2 and 4. Accent happening. So there's some examples of ways I can create variation with that, which is super fun. Let's take a look at the third pattern. So this is our third foundational pattern. When I said 4 patterns at the end of the last lesson, that's because with this one, sometimes on this last beat, we'll just do a quarter note when we're first learning it, but usually as we get going, we get that extra 8th note happening. So this sounds like down, down, up, up, down, up, as written on the board. But a lot of times when you're first starting, down, down, up, down, 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 up, down. So just not putting that last up strum there till you're ready and kind of used to doing this strumming pattern. This one adds a little bit of syncopation as the and of 2 is tied to beat 3. For some of you who are learning, it might be like, oh, I don't need to know that information, but I'm throwing it out there for those who are interested. A lot of times with strumming patterns, it's really more about the feel than maybe understanding what's happening with the rhythms. But syncopation happens when we put an emphasis on something other than the beat. So there's this forward momentum with the beat, and we sort of feel it with the way things are accented a little bit. We can tell the difference between a beat and something that's in between the beat. But if we put the emphasis on the offbeat, or those rhythms that are in between the beat, if we put it on that for even a little bit, it creates this syncopated feel, and it's kind of cool. So this one has obscured beat 3. We've got a little tie there. We have 2 up strums back to back, and it creates a little syncopation. But this one sounds like down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up. I'm going to do it a couple times without the extra up. Down, down, up, down, 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 up, down. I'm going to play it that way once or twice through that chord progression. So you have 3, 4, down, down, up, like that. Now if I add that extra up strum, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. That's a more full way that we tend to play this one. Say 1, 2, ready, and D. Now with this one, it's hard when you have 2 chords per measure. We have to make a couple choices. One is that we can use the first half twice, which is the same as that first strumming pattern. But because beat 3 isn't happening, we can either ignore the tie, if we wanted to play the whole thing, so to speak, which isn't really playing the whole thing. We can ignore the tie, which gives us our second pattern, do down, down, up for that first chord, and then down, up for that second chord, the same way we did with that second pattern. But with this third pattern, if we wanted to actually use this figure across the middle, then we're going to bring the second chord in on that first up strum and sort of anticipate. So, depending on the song that I'm playing, I like the anticipated sound, and sometimes I do not like the anticipated sound. If I don't, then I go back and use the first half of the strumming pattern, which is this one, or I use this one, down, down, up, for the second half. I use one of those options, but if I want the syncopated sound across it, it would sound like down, down, up, down, 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 up. So I'm switching on that first up strum. That's almost always what we do. We almost always anticipate that chord coming on beat 3. We can delay it to the end of 3. It's a less common approach, but it sounds like this. A 1, 2, ready, and... So if we were writing a song or playing a song where we wanted to have that sort of delay to that next chord, then that's a great way to do it. But otherwise, we're usually using one of the other options. And if we don't like the anticipated sound, we can use this option or this option for playing 2 chords per measure. Okay, so that's that with the even eighth notes. Of course, we can do it with the swung eighth notes. So down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. 1, 2, ready, and we have do some variations. If I wanted to throw that slap strumming in on beats 2 and 4, so here and there, the slap strumming would be 1, 2, ready, and... Just like that. Of course, you could do all down strums or something. Using the actual rhythm, but changing it up, using with the power chords there, just like that. 2, ready, and... wanted to, and I could do the down up. Changes it up a little bit, but I like with the palm muting. could always do something with some bar chords too. Ready and... Just like that. So we got the classic way, which is just strumming, letting the chords ring over, and using the strumming directions as shown, either with the swung eighth notes or the even eighth notes, those two variations. And then we've got some other ways that we can sort of hip it up. I don't per se think it's more hip. It just depends on the style we're playing, and it's really fun because it just slightly alters the groove when we're treating the way we're strumming the chord differently. So that's what I mentioned in the first lesson and actually reiterated in the last lesson. The 4 contributing factors to a strumming pattern is the meter or the time feel, and then the actual rhythm. But beyond that, strumming direction will change things, and so will how we treat each note, whether we're letting them ring, whether we're sort of controlling the ending, whether we're palm muting, whether we're slap strumming, whether we're slapping the strings. However we're treating a particular figure, rhythmic figure, changes up the strumming pattern. So, super cool, super fun. I hope you're really enjoying this and getting some good ideas. In the next lesson, we're going to look at sort of the fundamental strumming patterns for 2/4 time. So we're going to look at meter and pertaining to these in 2/4 time, sort of the fundamental strumming patterns there. And then in the lesson after that, we're going to actually look at 3/4 time. Then we'll come back to some other rhythmic variations that we can do in 4/4 time. So lots of great things to look forward to. After we do that, we'll be looking at other meters like 5/8, 9/8, 12/8, 6/8, and so on. So it's going to be super fun, going to be super great. These lessons, because I got a little more time now that it's summer and I'm on break from the university, are going to come out Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays until this lesson series is complete. So they're coming out with a little bit of momentum and speed there. So you can expect that in a couple days there will be another lesson after this one is aired. So take care, have fun with the guitar, be good, and we'll see you again. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. For more in-depth lessons and to progress through a free guitar course, check out my Guitar 101 series on YouTube and my guitar method books, which all come with access to hours of in-depth video lessons. You can find more information about me and my products at KristenBromley.com. Take care.